33神秘的金字塔招是着什么? 33. What do the mysterious pyramids signify? Nearly 1,000 pyramids have appeared on Earth, where humans reside. Pyramids are not only found in the Egyptian desert but also along the 30-degree latitude lines in the North and South Pacific, the North and South Atlantic, and the South Indian Ocean. They have also appeared in southern Honshu of Japan, the Mediterranean, and along the coast of Portugal, the southeastern part of Africa in the southern hemisphere, the west coast of Australia, and the northern area of New Zealand. The pyramids were not built by humans, or it can be said that they were not built by the ancestors of present-day humans. Instead, they were built by gods who were instructed by the greatest creator. The gods then dispatched angels, celestial beings, and Buddhas to the earth to build them. If this is difficult to understand, we can say that they were built by aliens who came to the earth. The purpose of the pyramids was to receive and accumulate energy from the universe to supply the energy for the creation of life and humans on Earth. The pyramids can be viewed as laboratories and cultivation sites for the creation of life and humans. The pyramids in Egypt were designed and built for the creation of humans, while other pyramids were built for the creation of other life forms. Since different life forms require different energies, the foundations of the pyramids are not all squares. Some are triangles, pentagons, and hexagons. The pyramids of Egypt are only 12,000 years old, while other pyramids are 2 billion years old. To understand how the pyramids were built and why they were built along the 30 degrees north and south latitude, please refer to the articles The Origin of Life and The Origin of Humanity. When I was an English teacher in a secondary school, I taught my students an article about the pyramids that was in the textbook. At that time, I had not yet awakened, but the mysteries of the pyramids, especially the transportation of the huge stones weighing several tons and the tightness of the gaps between the stones, left me puzzled. When it was said that hundreds of thousands of Egyptians spent decades building the Khufu pyramid, I held a skeptical attitude. Later, a series of events that occurred to me, scenes in my dreams, and strange fragments that appeared in my consciousness when I was contemplating, finally made me awaken. Suddenly, the origin of the universe, the origin of the greatest creator, the origin of life, the origin of humanity, 36-dimensional spaces, and so on surged out like a tide. Once these things came out, I was no longer myself. A powerful force compelled me to act according to its consciousness. I now feel like a robot, like a servant. I have to write, keep writing. Only by outlining what is in my head can I feel at ease. Otherwise, it will drive me crazy. Regarding the pyramids, I collected an article from Signify for everyone to contemplate and analyze. The full text is as follows. There are about 80 scattered pyramids on the west bank of the lower Nile River. They are the tombs of ancient Egyptian pharaohs, kings. Egyptians call them Barimus, pyramids, meaning high. From all sides, they are an isosceles triangle with a smaller top and a larger bottom, very similar to the Chinese character Jin, gold, so people vividly call them pyramid. Yi, 浩繁的工程, an incredibly complicated project. The greatest pyramid is the tomb of the pharaoh Khufu of the 4th dynasty. Built around 2700 BC, the pyramid is 146.5 meters high, equivalent to a 40-story skyscraper. The foundation of the pyramid is a square, and the length of each side is 230.6 meters. The pyramid covers an area of about 52,900 square meters. The Great Pyramid was built with approximately 2.3 million stones of different sizes. The lightest stone weighed 1.5 tons, and the average weight was about 2.5 tons, with a total weight of approximately 6.848 million tons. If we were to use trucks with a carrying capacity of 7 tons, it would require 978,286 trucks. If we were to connect these trucks end to end, the total length would be 6,200 kilometers, which is longer than the distance from Hainan Island in southern China to Mo in the north, or from the Pamir Plateau in the west to Shanghai in the east. Along the banks of the Yangtze River, the trucks would stretch from the Tuachuo River in the upper reaches to the Wusong entrance in the lower reaches. The second largest pyramid, just 3 meters shorter than the Great Pyramid, is the Khafre Pyramid, which is accompanied by a huge stone sculpture, the Sphinx with a human face and a lion's body. According to legend, in 2610 BC, The third pharaoh of the fourth dynasty of Egypt, Khafre, inspected his almost completed tomb and found a large abandoned boulder in the quarry. He ordered the stonemason to carve the statue according to his own face. The statue is 22 meters tall and 75 meters long. It wears a Nemes crown. On its forehead, there is a relief of a cobra. Under its chin, it is trailing a beard more than 5 meters long. The statue is stately and mysterious. When Napoleon occupied Egypt in 1798, he ordered the Sphinx to be bombarded with gunfire. However, it remained unmoved, but for a few broken beards, which are now preserved in the British Museum. According to Napoleon's rough estimate, if the stone pieces of the three neighboring pyramids of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure were used to build a stone wall 3 meters high and 1 meter thick, it could encircle the entire France. Where did the massive number of stone pieces come from? Investigations show that ordinary stone pieces might have been quarried locally, but the 115,000 pieces of top-quality white limestone used on the outer layer might have been obtained from the quarry on the east bank of the Nile. The granite in the tomb chamber might have been quarried from Aswan, 500 miles away. Mining, transportation, river transport, and shore operations required not only a large number of stonemasons, construction workers, transport workers, and sailors, but also a considerable number of engineers, construction supervisors, managers, and a military force with sufficient suppression capabilities, which are also essential. Moreover, they needed to eat, wear clothes, live, and consume, which required a large service staff. Of course, this does not include the elderly, women, and children who are weaker in labor, nor does it include monks and nobles who gain without labor. According to an estimate, a national workforce of 50 million people would be needed to support such a construction project. However, it is generally believed that the total population of the world would not exceed 20 million around 3000 BC. What's more, there have been more than 80 pyramids discovered. Even if a pyramid could be completed in 30 years, as Herodotus stated in History, it would still require a total of 2,400 years to complete all the pyramids. Can Egypt sustain such massive consumption over such a long period? 二运输之谜. The mystery of transportation. The most pressing and realistic problem was transportation. Even if Egypt had adequate manpower, it could not transport the megaliths weighing 2.5 to 160 tons to the worksite. Were they carried by carts and driven by horses? No, at that time, there were no carts and horses in Egypt. Horses and carts were introduced from abroad in the 16th century BC, namely 1,000 years after the building of the Pyramid of Khufu. Some believe that the stone pieces were transported via rolling transportation with crow plates and logs. But this method requires a large quantity of timber. However, at that time, the trees in Egypt were mainly palms, which could not meet the need for transportation in terms of quantity, growth speed, and rigidity. And it was almost impossible to import timbers. Some people believe it was a water transportation method. In 1980, the inspector of the Gizeh Antiquities in Egypt, Hawass, conducted rock core sampling and discovered a rock quay at least 50 meters deep, which may have been excavated during the 4th dynasty of Egypt as a port. Later, someone discovered a canal that connected the port. However, without pulleys, winches, or advanced lifting equipment, it would have been even more difficult to transport such bulky giant stones downhill, onto ships, and onto the shore than to move them on land. Moreover, there was a drop of at least 50 feet between the water surface and the rocky shore. And the pyramid on the west bank of the Nile had to use stones from the east bank of the Nile. Apart from land and water transportation, could they have used air transportation? This is truly a mystery. A French industrial chemist studied the pyramids from a chemical and microscopic perspective and believed that the stone blocks were not solid, but were composed of a mixture of substances such as limestone, rocks, and shells. Because the adhesive used had strong adhesive force, it was almost impossible to distinguish whether it was natural stone or artificial stone. This certainly solves the problem of transportation difficulties appropriately. However, as further evidence, the discovery of a 2.5 centimeters long human hair in the stone blocks is not enough, and this outstanding adhesive is not only not recorded in ancient books, but also has not been analyzed by modern means by the chemist. 三建筑之谜. The mystery of construction. Legend has it that Imhotep, the designer and architect of the pyramid, was the first talent in history to transcend his time. His talent surpassed the time to such an extent as to cause natural amazement and suspicion. It was extremely difficult to turn a gigantic protruding rock into a 52,900 square meter foundation of the pyramid. They completed the survey and construction of the foundation without the help of graders, power equipment, and modern measurements. The four hemlines of the foundation have a discrepancy of less than 20 centimeters, and the error rate is less than 1,000th. There is only a difference of 1.27 centimeters between its heights in the southeast corner and northwest corner, and the error rate is less than 1/10,000th. The force position error between its east-west axis and north-south axis is no more than 5 arcseconds. They did not have units of measurement except for the arm's length. 300 arms lengths equal approximately 155 meters as a measurement unit. It is really puzzling how they could construct with such accuracy. To ensure the pyramid's lasting, the designers did not use a single pole or nail to avoid hidden trouble since wood is liable to decay and iron is susceptible to rusting. There is no bonding material between the stone pieces, but they fit perfectly. Even the thinnest blade cannot penetrate. How the chunks of stone were hoisted and placed one upon another is an even more mysterious subject that provokes endless guesses. Some people say that a wooden boat-shaped tool was used to lever the megaliths up and lay them one after another. But where did the fulcrum and ropes that could lift several, dozens, or even more than 100 tons of stone come from? Some people claim that the sand-filling method was employed. Sand was piled along the pyramid's foundation. The sand pile would rise with the height of the foundation and acted as scaffolds. After the pyramid was completed, the sand would be cleared away. Now let's work on a mathematical problem. The 146-meter pyramid is a cone with a square bottom and a pointed top. The foundation of the pyramid is a square with a side length of 230 meters. Question: what is its volume? If the periphery of the foundation is surrounded by sand to form a slope for the transport of stone, and the angle of the slope is 30 or 25 degrees, then how long will be the hemline of the sand pile? Suppose the height of the sand pile is also 146 meters. How many cubic meters of sand will be needed? Where does all this massive amount of sand come from? Besides, the filling and removing of the sand would double the workload. Some people say that the salt filling method was employed with the same procedure as the sand filling method. After the pyramid was completed, water could be used to dissolve the salt, and there was no need to move it away. But it would be much more difficult to obtain so much salt. In addition, a storm would melt away a whole salt slope. It is also believed that mud bricks from the Nile were used to build the twisting slopes, which rose layer by layer. The result was similar to that of the sand slope, the only difference being that mud bricks were less available than sand. There is an entrance 13 meters from the ground in the north of the pyramid. Since the 9th century, tomb robbers, explorers, and investigators have frequented the pyramids in close succession. However, its inner structure remains a mystery. There are labyrinth-like passageways and tomb chambers inside the pyramid. The walls are smooth and decorated with reliefs. The passageways have neatly constructed steps extending like veins toward the tomb chambers deep underground. The chamber has vent holes leading outside the pyramid. It is said that the soul of the dead can freely enter and go out of the pyramid through these holes. Strangely, the two vent holes aim at Draco, eternity, and Orion, resurrection, respectively. They are probably the places where souls ascend. 3 such chambers have been discovered, while archaeologists believe that there are at least 4 more chambers to be discovered. Could people 4,000 years ago accomplish such ingenious and exquisite designs and conceptions? Most surprisingly, there have been no traces of torches used for lighting in any mausoleum. Archaeologists have used modern instruments to analyze the dust that has been accumulated for 4,600 years. No ashes have been discovered, nor are there any traces suggesting that soot has been scraped off. We should know that these instruments can analyze 1/millionth of the chemical ingredients inside each particle of dust. They could not have carved reliefs, cleaned chambers, or moved the corpse of the pharaoh in total darkness. What kind of lighting have they used? Until now, we have found no clues in this aspect. 4. 数据之谜. The mystery of numbers. Several precise equations shown by a few numbers have puzzled archaeologists, architects, geographers, and physicists. Equation 1. Pyramid weight x 10 to the power of 15 equals Earth's weight. Equation 2. Pyramid height x 1 billion equals distance from Earth to the Sun, 150 million kilometers. Equation 3. Pyramid height squared equals area of pyramid face triangle. Equation 4. Pyramid base perimeter, pyramid height equals circumference, radius. Equation 5. Pyramid base perimeter x2 equals equator's time degree. Equation 6. Pyramid base perimeter slash pyramid height x2 equals pi equals 3.14159. Who would believe that these figures are just coincidences? Furthermore, the longitude running through the pyramid is the meridian of the Earth, a line that divides the land and oceans into equal halves. The foundations of the pyramids are located right in the gravitational center of each continent. In addition, the dimensions of the Great Pyramid and the magnitude of the North Hemisphere are extremely similar in proportions. Thus, it has been inferred that the Egyptians worked out the oblateness of the Earth 4,000 years ago. The positions of the axes of the Earth's two poles are changing every day, but after a cycle of 25,827 years, they return to their original positions. The sum of the diagonals of the pyramid is 25,826.6. We know that the Pythagorean law was not discovered until 1,000 years after the completion of the pyramid, and that not until 300 years later did Zhu Chengji work out the circumference ratio to such accuracy. The accurate calculation of the ratio came out in the West until the 16th century. Columbus discovered America 4,000 years after the completion of the pyramid, and from then, people began to have an initial understanding of the distribution of oceans and land in the world. Today, nearly 5,000 years after the completion of the pyramid, we are finally able to work out the weight of the Earth and the distance between the Sun and the Earth. But how could people 4,500 years ago conduct such accurate calculations? 五万古长存之谜. The mystery of its long-lasting existence. It is said that of the 7 great wonders of the ancient world, some have collapsed, some have disappeared with the passage of time, and only the pyramids have stood the test of time and still stand towering. What is the secret to their permanent existence? Let's first do an experiment. Pour a certain amount of rice, sand, and gravel respectively, and soon 3 cones will be formed. Although they are different in quality, they are quite similar in shape. If you conduct a measurement, you will find that their cone angles are all 52 degrees. This naturally formed angle is the most stable angle and is called the limiting angle and stable angle of natural falling. Strangely, the angles of the pyramid are exactly 1.50.9 degrees. This shows that it has been built according to the limiting angle and stable angle. The wind in the desert is fierce. Due to the unique shape of the pyramid, the strong wind is forced to slowly rise along the slope or edges of the tower. The windward side of the tower becomes smaller and smaller from bottom to top. When it reaches the top, the windward side approaches zero. This unique shape, which uses softness to overcome hardness, minimizes the destructive power of the wind. People also know that the directional effect of magnetic lines can cause ground structures and even mountains to collapse. This pyramid is located at the center of the magnetic lines, and it moves with the movement of the magnetic lines and the Earth. Therefore, the amplitude it experiences is extremely weak, and earthquakes have little impact on it. The mystery of the stability of the pyramid lies in its 52-degree angle, pyramidal shape, and synchronous movement with the magnetic lines. But who can tell us how the ancient people 4,500 years ago knew that a 52-degree angle was a stable angle? How did they know to use a pyramid shape to resolve desert storms? And how did they know to lay the huge foundation of the tower at the center of the magnetic lines? 6. 微波谐振腔体和宇宙波. Microwave resonating cavity and cosmic wave. Man is mortal, but why did they dedicate so much labor and wealth to building a storeroom for a carcass? Are there any other reasons except for the king's luxury and extravagance? Yes, there are. Scientists' research indicates that the shape of the pyramid has enabled it to store a strange energy, which can cause the carcass to rapidly dehydrate and speed up mummification. The dead can thus wait for the resurrection sometime in the future. If a rusty metal coin is placed in a pyramid, it will soon become shiny and glittery. If a glass of fresh milk is placed in the pyramid and taken out 24 hours later, it will still be fresh and delicious. If you have a headache or toothache, go to the pyramid and after an hour, the swelling and pain will disappear as if a burden has been lifted. If you are suffering from neurasthenia and exhaustion, go to the pyramid and after a few minutes or hours, you will feel revitalized and your energy will be doubled. French scientist Bovis discovered that the carcasses of small animals such as piglets and puppies placed in waste bins at 1/3 the height of the pyramid did not decompose, but instead dehydrated and turned into mummies. He built a small pyramid in his workshop according to the dimensions and proportions of the Great Pyramid and achieved the same antiseptic and preserving effect. These small pyramids for home use were once popular in the United States for preservation and experimentation purposes. Czech radio technician Karl Delbar created the pyramid blade sharpener based on Bovis's discovery and was awarded a patent by the Czech government in 1959. The Egyptian scientist Healy also did an experiment. After having put the bean seeds in the pyramid for some time, he found that the sprouts were 5 times longer and the chlorophyll was 5 times more. In 1963, biologists at the University of Oklahoma determined that the Egyptian princess Manat, who had been dead for thousands of years, still had viable skin cells on her lifelike body. The most hair-raising story comes from Dr. Masu, an Egyptian archaeologist who announced that when he opened the stone door of an ancient tomb 27 feet below the Valley of the Kings after 4 months of excavation, a large gray cat covered in dust arched its back and hissed fiercely, pouncing towards the people. Several hours later, the cat died in the laboratory, but it faithfully guarded its master for 4,000 years. Some scientists believe that the structure of the pyramids creates a good microwave resonance cavity. The heating effect of microwave energy can sterilize and dehydrate the body, and the cavity can fully play the role of microwave. But how did the pharaohs 4,000 years ago know how to use microwaves? Other scientists believe that any building can absorb different cosmic waves according to their external shapes. The granite in the pyramid has a battery-like effect, absorbing and storing various cosmic waves, while the limestone outside the pyramid prevents the diffusion of cosmic waves. The supernatural power generated inside the pyramid is the result of the action of cosmic waves. But how could the pharaohs 4,000 years ago know about cosmic waves and discover the relationship between cosmic waves and stone? 7. 法老诅咒和核废料. Pharaoh's curses and nuclear waste. It is incorrect to think of the pyramid only as a source of life and energy. The pyramid also deters people from further exploration with its mysterious and frightening means. In 1922, people excavated the mausoleum of Tutankhamun, a king who died in the 18th century BC. The entrance to the grave bore the awe-inspiring inscription, "Any tomb robber will be cursed by Pharaoh." Scientists have traditionally dismissed the curse of the pharaohs as superstitious nonsense, yet repeated instances of misfortune and disaster have demonstrated the potency of these curses. One of the leaders of the excavation, Duke Karna, was bitten by a mosquito and suddenly died of a carbuncle. Then a visitor named Yul drowned, while the railway magnate Mr. Amaridge died of pneumonia. A journalist who used an X-ray camera to photograph the mummy of the king died of shock. Dr. Kent's assistants, Mike and Pitcher, died one after another under mysterious circumstances. Pitcher's father committed suicide by jumping off a building, and an 8-year-old child was accidentally killed by a funeral car. Within 3 years and 3 months of the excavation, a total of 22 people connected to the project died mysteriously. The Pyramid of Khufu also bears a terrifying inscription: "The wings of death shall fall upon those who disturb the pharaoh's peace." Dr. Ismail Taya, a professor at Cairo University, believes that there is a type of fungus called aspergillus in mummies' bodies. Infection with this fungus can cause inflammation of the respiratory system, red spots on the skin, and ultimately death due to difficulty breathing. The American Medical Journal once published an investigative report stating that out of 100 British tourists who had visited the pyramids, 40% died of cancer within 10 years, and they were not old. Moreover, those who were daring enough to climb to the top of the pyramid quickly experienced a state of coma, and none survived. Recently, Professor Davidoff from Barry University in Miami detected radiation decay in the pyramid. Apparently, This is the main reason why British tourists developed cancer. However, there is no such radiation outside the pyramid. It seems that the pyramid structure can prevent radiation leakage, so he put forward a new and bold hypothesis. The pyramids were nuclear waste storage facilities built by prehistoric extraterrestrials. Okay, the above introduction and analysis of the pyramids are very insightful, and there is no need for me to explain further. The fact is that the pyramids are not the work of human beings, nor are they the tombs of pharaohs. There are many reasons why the pharaohs' bodies were stored inside, and one of the main reasons was to prevent the secret of how the angels created humans from being leaked and copied by humans or other aliens, causing unnecessary trouble. The pharaohs were the supreme beings among humans, and their bodies were stored in the pyramid, so people would not try to enter the tower out of respect, thereby protecting the secret from being leaked. So, what about the curse of the pharaohs?